Night Agarwood. Chapter 1, Hurried Receipt of Certificates. As night fell, the neon lights on the street corners swayed like water, reflecting Zhang Ying's clenched hands. In her hand was a fresh marriage certificate, and the cold paper seemed to remind her that at this moment, she had stepped into another life stage. But there was a hint of relief in her heart, mixed with unwillingness and a slight expectation. Zhang Ying, are you ready? The voice of the man next to him was low and cold, with an almost imperceptible sense of distance, which made people's hearts tighten. She pursed her lips and nodded slightly. Gu Mo, this man who has been outspoken since the moment of the blind date, promised to be a perfect husband, but he couldn't give love. The signature strokes crossed the surface of the document, cold and firm. Zhang Ying felt her heart beat slightly. She knew that this marriage would not last long, but some unexpected images flashed through her mind. Perhaps, this was a certain stop in her life. Walking out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, the night wind was misty and lifted her hair. She looked up at the flickering streetlights and smiled secretly. Maybe this marriage will end sooner or later, but at least, she has really stepped into it. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 2, Promises on the Day of the Blind Date. On the day of the blind date, Zhang Ying arrived at the cafe early, and there were 2 cups of steaming coffee on the table. Gu Mo sat opposite. His posture was straight, his eyes were deep, as if he could see everything. Sakura, I promise you that in this marriage, I will be a perfect husband. His tone was calm but cold firm. Zhang Ying smiled slightly, but there was a hint of sadness hidden in her eyes. The word love seems to him to be an unattainable and unfamiliar word forever. She silently accepted this loveless marriage and accepted this calm promise. The crowd outside the window was bustling, and the aroma of coffee swirled in the air. Gu Mo looked down at his phone, his fingers occasionally tapping on the table. His movements were indifferent and skillful. Zhang Ying looked at his profile and secretly made up her mind. This marriage may be as short and cold as night. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 3, The Secret of the Postgraduate Entrance Examination. Married life is not as sweet as imagined. Zhang Ying tidied up the room in an orderly manner, arranged the desk neatly, went out early and returned late every day, and went to the library to immerse herself in the preparation for the postgraduate entrance examination. Gu Mo was busy with the company's affairs, and their worlds were separated by an invisible wall. Are you tired? Occasionally, Gu Mo would appear behind her, his tone still cold. Zhang Ying shook her head and smiled faintly. It's okay. She didn't want him to know the secret she had been desperately preparing. This was her only trump card and her only hope. In the dead of night, she sat alone at her desk, and the light reflected her profile. The moonlight outside the window poured in coldly, as if reminding her that life choices are never easy to show favor. With every page she turned, she felt a tense and persistent sense of loneliness. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 4, Unexpected Gatherings. At a college reunion, Zhang Ying rarely put down her books and reunited with her old friends. Slightly tipsy, she staggered, and the high heels under her feet made a soft sound on the floor. Be careful. A familiar male classmate reached out, stabilized her waist, and gently hugged her into his arms. That familiar temperature made Zhang Ying's heart tremble slightly, both safe and unfamiliar. Are you okay? His voice was low, with long-lost concern. Zhang Ying nodded, but felt a hint of indescribable shyness. Just at this moment, Gu Mo appeared at the door. Zhang Ying could feel his gaze, cold and sharp, piercing straight into his heart like a sharp blade. Her heart tightened, knowing that the piece of tonight had been silently torn apart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 5, The First Time I Crossed the Rules. Back home, Zhang Ying wanted to return to her bedroom quietly to avoid a head-on conflict with Gu Mo. Before the door was completely closed, Gu Mo's figure appeared, like a shadow that could not be ignored in the dark night. You are married, and you are not allowed to have any contact with him in the future. In his low voice, there was a dangerous possessiveness. Zhang Ying was stunned, her heart beating like a drum. In the darkness, he approached, his breath rushing in with a fiery breath. Gu Mo held her buttocks and picked her up, her lips and tongue intertwined strongly. Her heart was in chaos, both scared and irresistible. At this moment, she truly understood that love did not exist, but was just hidden in his extreme way. Zhang Ying felt shocked like never before, and also felt that her world had been completely rewritten. Chapter 6, Undercurrents in the night. The city at night was like a piece of flowing ink. Zhang Ying was lying on the bed, recalling the scene just now, with mixed emotions surging in her heart. For the first time, Gu Mo had crossed the line so directly, and his hands, his lips, and his deep and possessive voice were all deeply imprinted in her mind. She looked sideways out the window, and the neon lights reflected the curves of the street, like silent veins. The fear and throbbing in her heart were intertwined, and she didn't even dare to admit that her feelings for him began to become subtle. The next morning, Gu Mo went out in a hurry as usual, silently. Zhang Ying was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, holding a coffee cup in her hand, but she couldn't calm down. She recalled the touch last night, and a strange warmth unconsciously appeared on her lips. Zhang Ying, remember your promise. Gu Mozeng whispered a warning, like a nail, nailed to the softest place in her heart. On this day, she went to work with a strange mood, constantly replaying the details of that night in her mind, every movement, every whisper, she couldn't ignore. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 7, Encounters in the Library. Zhang Ying's daily library trip was originally just an escape and self-precipitation. Today, she sat by the window as usual, tapping her fingers on the table, but her mind was caught up in thoughts other than books. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared next to the bookshelf. It was a male classmate who helped her at the party last night. The eyes of the two met in the air, and Zhang Ying's heart throbbed, and she couldn't even catch her attention from the book. You look tired today. The male classmate smiled with an imperceptible concern in his tone. Zhang Ying lowered her head, feeling nervous. It's okay. Her tone was flat, but her fingertips clenched the pages unconsciously. At this moment, Gu Mo's shadow appeared from the other end of the library, and his cold gaze swept over the two of them, making Zhang Ying feel oppressed instantly. This feeling of being watched made her heart beat faster unconsciously. That day, Zhang Ying understood for the first time that Gu Mo's possessiveness was far deeper than she imagined. She couldn't reveal the flutter in her heart to anyone or predict what would happen next. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 8, Unexpected Night Rain. At night, the sky is low and dark clouds are over the city. Zhang Ying was walking home when raindrops fell, and she hurriedly opened her umbrella, but her shoulders were still wet from the rain. Be careful. A familiar voice sounded from beside her. Zhang Ying looked up. It was the male classmate. He reached out to support her umbrella and protected her in his arms. The rain slid down the corners of his clothes, and the wet coolness carried a certain sense of security. Zhang Ying's heart trembled slightly, but she knew that if this scene was seen by Gu Mo, the consequences would be unimaginable. She whispered, I can. Myself. No, I'll take you home. His tone was resolute, and his eyes were filled with warmth that could not be refused. The silence along the way was intertwined with the sound of rain, like some kind of invisible undercurrent quietly flowing in Zhang Ying's heart. She understood that her life was quietly deviating from the track, and Gu Mo's eyes were watching her every move. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 9, Silence Behind the Door. When she got home, Zhang Ying shook off the rain, still reminiscing about the throbbing caused by the night rain. She pushed open the bedroom door, only to see Gu Mo already standing inside, his cold gaze brushing over her like a blade. Where did you go today? Although his tone was flat, it was oppressive, which made Zhang Ying's whole body froze. It's just, went to some class reunions. She replied cautiously, her voice as low as a mosquito. Gu Mo approached, and she felt a sense of oppression. In the darkness, he reached out and grabbed her wrist, light but resolute. At that moment, her heart raced, both scared and irresistible. His breath was so close that it seemed to merge her into his world. Zhang Ying couldn't help but tremble slightly. She knew that this marriage was never just a formality. Gu Mo's possessiveness was far more fierce than she imagined, and she herself began to waver silently. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 10, The First Time in the Dark. It was late at night and the lights were dim, and Zhang Ying returned to the bedroom, trying to forget the chaos of the day. However, Gu Mo appeared at the door again, silent like a ghost. You are married, so you are not allowed to have any contact with him in the future. His whispers, with irresistible strength. In the dark, he approached, wrapping his fingers around her wrists and forcing her into a corner. Zhang Ying's heart beat like thunder, her lips were covered, and her breathing was chaotic. Gu Mo held up her buttocks, and their bodies were close together, their lips and tongues entangled. At this moment, for the first time, she felt his possessiveness so clearly, and for the first time, she felt the hidden throbbing deep in her heart. She couldn't refuse, nor could she escape, and in the dark night, he became the most unnegligible existence in her life. Chapter 11, Alienation in the Morning Light. The morning sun shone into the bedroom through the gaps in the curtains, and Zhang Ying rubbed her sleepy eyes. The entanglement of last night still echoed in my mind, and my chest seemed to be quietly tightened. Gu Mo was no longer in the room, leaving behind the residual warmth and silent oppression in the air. At the breakfast table, his seat was empty and the coffee was full of bitter aroma. Zhang Ying lowered her head and stirred the coffee, thinking to herself, is this marriage a safe harbor or an invisible cage? The phone screen lit up, and she received a message from a male classmate, wondering if the rain last night wet her. Zhang Ying's palms were slightly warm for a moment, but she quickly deleted the message. Gu Mo's gaze was everywhere, and she didn't dare to let any feelings reveal flaws. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 12, The Library's Temptation. Zhang Ying still goes back and forth to the library every day, and books have become her safe haven. Today, she sits by the window, occasionally looking up at the sky outside the window, trying to forget the lingering last night. Suddenly, a male classmate appeared next to the bookshelf and asked with a smile, "You look tired today, do you want to take a break?" Zhang Ying's heart trembled, and she lowered her head, "It's okay." The tone was flat, but his fingers were clenched between the pages. Not far away, Gu Mo's figure appeared. His gaze was cold, sweeping over Zhang Ying and the male classmates like a knife blade, making her chest feel breathless. At this moment, she knew that his possessiveness was far deeper than she imagined. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 13, Sudden Dispute. In the evening, when Zhang Ying came home, Gu Mo was already sitting on the sofa, his eyebrows and eyes cold. "Why are you coming back so late today?" His tone was flat, but it was like an undercurrent rolling. "It's just overtime," Zhang Ying replied in a low voice, feeling a little panicked. Overtime. Gu Mo's eyes gradually sharpened, or with him. Zhang Ying was stunned, her heart beating like a drum. She didn't expect that Gu Mo had already noticed the small changes in her life. The two fell into a brief silence, and the air seemed to freeze. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 14, The Temptation of a Rainy Night. One night, Zhang Ying was walking home alone when the rain wet her shoulders. The male classmate appeared again, holding up an umbrella and holding her in his arms. "I'll take you home." His tone was firm and his eyes were warm. Zhang Ying felt a familiar sense of security, but Gu Mo's cold gaze flashed in her mind, and she felt uneasy. She understands that if this relationship is exposed, it will cause an unpredictable storm. When he got home, Gu Mo was already standing at the door. He looked at Zhang Ying coldly, and whispered, "Where did you go today?" Zhang Ying could only swallow the throbbing in her heart and replied in a low voice, "It's just, I went out a little." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 15, The Challenge Behind the Door. It was late at night, and only dim lights remained in the room. Gu Mo walked into Zhang Ying's room and whispered, "You are married, so you are not allowed to have any contact with him in the future." Zhang Ying's heart beat like a drum, and her body trembled slightly. He got too close, his breath rushing towards her like a flame. Gu Mo reached out and grabbed her wrist and forced her into the corner, their lips and tongues entangled. Zhang Ying couldn't resist, and she didn't dare to refuse. She really felt his possessiveness for the first time, and for the first time, she felt the throbbing in her heart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 16, Hesitation in the Morning Mist. The next morning, when Zhang Ying woke up, the fog outside the window filled the air. The entanglement last night was as blurred as a dream, and she was both expecting and fearing in her heart. Gu Mo had already gone out, leaving behind the silence and the aroma of coffee in the room. Zhang Ying lowered her head and took a sip, her fingers trembling. She knew in her heart that her feelings for him were gradually fermenting. At work, she was absent-minded, replaying every detail of last night in her mind, unable to concentrate. This kind of contradictory and strong emotion made her feel extremely confused. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 17, Encounters at the Party. At the school class reunion, Zhang Ying met the male classmate again. Slightly drunk, he held her shoulders and asked in a low voice, "Are you okay?" Zhang Ying blushed and her heart beat. She didn't know how to answer. Gu Mo was also present. His eyes were cold, making her feel an invisible oppression. This night, Zhang Ying felt two emotional pulls, Gu Mo's cold possession on the one hand, and the warm concern of male classmates. She began to understand that her heart was being completely disrupted. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 18, The Pressure of the Night. After returning home, Gu Mo silently looked at Zhang Ying and did not speak. Zhang Ying could feel the possessiveness in his eyes, and her chest seemed to be pressed by a large stone. "What are you thinking?" he suddenly asked in a low voice. Zhang Ying lowered her head, her throat tightened. "It's nothing." Gu Mo approached, wrapped her in his arms, and whispered, "You are mine, in this world, no one can get close to you except me." At this moment, Zhang Ying was both scared and excited, and her heart began to tilt towards Gu Mo. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 19, The Silent Dark Tide. At night, Zhang Ying sat alone at her desk. The lights were dim. Her heart was pulled by an invisible thread. Gu Mo's possessiveness and the warmth of male classmates all formed a silent undercurrent in her heart. She opened her notebook but couldn't concentrate. The sound of rain dripping outside the window reminded her that her life was quietly deviating from the track. Every heartbeat seems to remind her, this marriage has never been a simple form, but an emotional battlefield. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 20, Entanglement in the Darkness. Late at night, the lights in the room were dim, and Zhang Ying tried to calm down. Gu Mo appeared again, his cold eyes like sharp blades, forcing her into a corner. "You can't get close to him anymore," he whispered, with an irresistible threat. Zhang Ying's chest rose and fell violently. She couldn't refuse, and she didn't dare to refuse. In the darkness, the figures of the two were intertwined, and for the first time she felt his possessiveness so clearly, and for the first time, she felt the throbbing deep in her heart. Chapter 21, A Sudden Visitor. Zhang Ying was tidying up the study when suddenly the doorbell rang. She opened the door and saw a strange woman holding a letter in her hand. "Is it Miss Zhang Ying?" The woman's tone was polite, but there was a hint of nervousness in her eyes. Zhang Ying took the letter, opened it, and saw only one sentence in it: "There are some secrets that should not be hidden." Her heart was shocked. She didn't know where the letter came from. Gu Mo happened to appear. He scanned the letter, and a hint of imperceptible chill flashed in his eyes. "Who gave it?" he asked in a low voice, his tone as cold as a sharp blade. Zhang Ying couldn't answer, and an inexplicable fear surged in her heart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 22, The Confrontation in the Library. The next day, Zhang Ying went to the library as usual. The male classmate suddenly appeared, holding a piece of information in his hand, looking anxious. "Zhang Ying, I have something to say." Before she could speak, Gu Mo walked over from the other side, his eyes sweeping over the two of them like ice. Zhang Ying felt that her chest was overwhelmed. "What are you talking about?" Gu Mo's tone was not emotional, but it was suffocating. The male classmate took a step back and whispered, "It's nothing, it's just some information." Zhang Ying knew that Gu Mo's possessiveness could no longer be quelled by any explanation. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 23, Chase in the Night. One night, Zhang Ying went home alone, and under the street light, she felt a strange gaze. Gu Mo was already following her, and his steps were silent. "Gu Mo," she whispered, but she was both scared and expectant. "Where are you going?" His tone was low and oppressive. Zhang Ying stopped, and the rain wet her hair. Gu Mo took a step forward and hugged her into his arms, his breath burning. In the dark night, his possessiveness surged like a torrent, making it impossible for her to escape. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 24, The Exposure of Secrets. At home, Zhang Ying accidentally discovered that the message on her mobile phone had been screenshotted. It was a conversation between her and her male classmates. What is this? Gu Mo's voice was so low that it was shocking. Zhang Ying pursed her lips, unable to defend herself. She suddenly understood that her secret had been revealed. Gu Mo's eyes were cold, like winter ice piercing his heart. You, his voice was low and possessive, from now on, no one is allowed to come near you again. Zhang Ying's heart tightened, and her chest seemed to be pressed by something, but she couldn't resist. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 25, The Entanglement of the Night. In the dark, Gu Mo pulled Zhang Ying into his arms and whispered, "You are mine, only I can have you." Zhang Ying's heart beat faster and she couldn't resist. His fingers wrapped around her wrists, his lips and tongue intertwined, and his breathing intertwined. For the first time, she felt his possessiveness so clearly, and for the first time, she felt the throbbing hidden in her heart. In the dark night, the two seemed to be frozen in time and could not be separated. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 26, Alienation in the Morning Light. The next morning, Zhang Ying woke up with fog outside the window. The entanglement last night was as blurred as a dream, and she was both expecting and scared in her heart. Gu Mo had already gone out, leaving a room of silence and the aroma of coffee. Zhang Ying lowered her head and took a sip, her fingers trembling slightly. She understood that her feelings for him were quietly fermenting. At work, she couldn't concentrate, replaying every detail of last night in her mind, and couldn't ignore the throbbing. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 27, The Reappearance of the Strange Woman. In the afternoon, a strange woman appeared at the door of Zhang Ying's workplace and handed over a piece of information, her tone polite but nervous. "This is for you, please be careful." Zhang Ying took the information, opened it, and found that it contained some of Gu Mo's past whereabouts and secrets. She was shocked that this world seemed more complicated than she imagined. Gu Mo came home later, saw the information, looked extremely cold, and whispered, "You now know how deep my possession of you is." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 28, The Mystery of a Rainy Night. At night, Zhang Ying was walking on the street with an umbrella, and the rain wet her shoulders, and she had mixed feelings. The male classmate suddenly appeared and wanted to escort her home. Zhang Ying was entangled in her heart, but Gu Mo Ruiying followed her, and a low voice sounded, "Where are you going?" The rain hit the umbrella, reminding Zhang Ying like a whisper that every step of the world was monitored and controlled. Her heart swayed in contradiction and throbbing. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 29, The Dark Tide of the Night. Back home, Gu Mo looked at Zhang Ying silently and did not speak. The possessiveness in his eyes surged like an undercurrent, making her chest tighten. "What are you thinking?" he whispered. Zhang Ying lowered her head, her throat tightened. "It's nothing." Gu Mo approached, took her into his arms, and whispered, "You are mine, in this world, no one can get close to you except me." At this moment, her heart began to tilt towards him, both scared and excited. Chapter 30, Entanglement in the Night. Late at night, the room was dimly lit. Gu Mo approached Zhang Ying and whispered, "You can't get close to him anymore." Zhang Ying's chest rose and fell violently, and she couldn't resist or dare not refuse. In the darkness, the figures of the two were intertwined, and for the first time she felt his possessiveness so clearly, and for the first time, she felt the throbbing deep in her heart. Chapter 31, Loneliness After the Rain. The city after the rain is humid and cool. Zhang Ying walked alone on the street home, the air filled with the smell of rain and dirt. Her mood was heavier than the weather. Gu Mo's possessiveness was still rolling in her mind last night, like an invisible tide beating against her heart. Under the street lamp, she saw her shadow stretched very long, like an invisible shackle. Holding the handle of the umbrella tightly in her hand, she unconsciously bit the corners of her lips, her thoughts as chaotic as a fog. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in front of him, a male classmate, who was also holding an umbrella in his hand, and quickly walked to her. Zhang Ying, are you okay? His voice was gentle and carried a reassuring power. Zhang Ying smiled reluctantly and nodded. But I knew in my heart that this peace was only short-lived. She thought of Gu Mo's cold eyes and low voice, and an indescribable fear and throbbing surged in her heart. The rain slid down the edge of the umbrella and hit the ground with a ticking sound, as if reminding her that no matter how far she walked, she could not escape this whirlpool of emotions. Chapter 32, Confrontation in the Dark Night. When she got home, Zhang Ying's heart still couldn't calm down. Gu Mo was already waiting for her in the living room, his figure tall and cold. His eyes were like sharp blades in the night, leaving her with nowhere to escape. Where did you go today? His tone was low and calm, but with an irresistible sense of oppression. Zhang Ying swallowed her saliva and replied in a low voice, just go out for a walk. Gu Mo approached step by step, and she could feel his breath burning and heavy. Zhang Ying's heart tightened, her back was pressed down by the cold air, but she felt a strange dependence. You're lying. Gu Mo's voice was low, with hidden anger, I can see through your thoughts at a glance. Zhang Ying couldn't defend herself, so she could only lower her head, her chest rising and falling violently. In the dark night, his possessiveness was like a silent storm, wrapping her tightly, and her heart began to quietly lean towards this domineering emotion. Chapter 33, The Secret of the Library. The next day, Zhang Ying went to the library as usual. She sat in the corner, but her mind was not on the book. The male classmate appeared next to the bookshelf and said softly, I have something to tell you. Zhang Ying's heart trembled slightly, but Gu Mo also happened to appear, his eyes were cold, sweeping over the two of them like black ice, causing a stuffy pain in her chest. Why are you talking to him alone today? Gu Mo asked in a low voice, his tone cold. Zhang Ying could only swallow the throbbing in her heart and reluctantly replied, it's just a matter of studying. Gu Mo stared at her, his fingers tapping lightly on the table, as if to warn her. Zhang Ying's heart beat faster, she knew that his possessiveness was not only an emotion, but also an unchallengeable force. Chapter 34, Whispers in the Night. At night, Zhang Ying lay on the bed, repeatedly recalling every contact with Gu Mo in her mind. His breath, the temperature of his fingers, and the marks on his lips all burned her heart like flames. There was a faint sound of footsteps outside the door, and Gu Mo's shadow appeared at the door. He quietly walked into the room and whispered, You are mine, no one can get near you. Zhang Ying felt her heart was overwhelmed, but she couldn't resist. He took her into his arms, and a low voice rang in his ears, like a whisper in the dark night, causing her heart to rise and fall violently. This night, for the first time, she felt the depth of Gu Mo's possessiveness so clearly, and for the first time, she felt the throbbing and fear hidden in her heart. Chapter 35, Unexpected Messages. In the afternoon, Zhang Ying received a message from a male classmate, which was short but concerned, How were you last night? Her fingers stopped on the screen, mixed emotions welling in her heart. Delete messages, replies, silences every choice feels like stepping on a knife's edge. After Gu Mo returned home, he saw her mobile phone screen lit up, and her eyes were instantly cold. Asked in a low voice, who sent the message? Zhang Ying swallowed the throbbing in her heart and replied in a low voice, it's nothing. Gu Mo approached her, covered the back of her hand with his fingers, and whispered, from now on, only I can contact you. Zhang Ying felt her heart tighten, both scared and excited, she knew that she was deeply bound in this marriage. Chapter 36, The Lingering of the Rainy Night. Late at night, the rain hit the window, and Zhang Ying couldn't sleep. Gu Mo suddenly appeared in the room, took her into his arms, and whispered, You are mine, no one can get close to you. Zhang Ying's heart beat like thunder, and her spine was cold but she couldn't resist. His fingers wrapped around her wrists, their lips and tongues intertwined, and in the dark night, the figures of the two were intertwined like an undercurrent. That night, she felt her dependence on Gu Mo for the first time, and for the first time, she clearly understood that the deep throbbing in her heart could not be erased. Chapter 37, The Crack in the Morning Light. The next morning, the sun shone into the room through the gaps in the curtains, and Zhang Ying felt as if her chest was being quietly tightened. The lingering of last night made her heart unable to calm down. Gu Mo had already gone out, leaving only the silence and the aroma of coffee in the room. Zhang Ying lowered her head and sipped her coffee, her fingers trembling slightly. She understood that her feelings for him were fermenting, and this relationship was full of contradictions and dangers. At work, she kept replaying every contact with Gu Mo in her mind, unable to concentrate. An inexplicable excitement surged in my heart, both sweet and fearful. Chapter 38, Strange Letters. In the afternoon, a strange letter was placed on Zhang Ying's desk, unsigned, but the content revealed some secrets and whereabouts of Gu Mo's past. Zhang Ying's heart was shocked, unable to understand the origin of this letter. She looked up at the window, feeling uneasy. This world seemed more complex and more dangerous than she had imagined. Gu Mo came home later, saw the letter, his face was cold, and he whispered, "You now know how deep my possession of you is." Zhang Ying's heart tightened, and her chest was so stuffy that she couldn't breathe, but she couldn't deny the throbbing in her heart. Chapter 39, Whispers of the Night. It was late at night and the lights in the room were dim. Gu Mo approached Zhang Ying, and a low voice sounded, "You can't get close to anyone anymore, you only belong to me." Zhang Ying's heart beat faster, and her spine felt a slight chill in her spine, but she couldn't refuse. His fingers wrapped around her wrists, lips and tongues intertwined, and in the dark night, he seemed to be the only one left in her world. This night, Zhang Ying felt his possessiveness so clearly for the first time, and for the first time, she also felt the throbbing and fear deep in her heart. Chapter 40, The Dark Tide of the Night. Late at night, the sound of rain dripping, Zhang Ying lay on the bed, her heart like an undercurrent. She couldn't ignore the oppression brought about by Gu Mo's possessiveness, nor could she deny the throbbing in her heart. In the darkness, Gu Mo suddenly appeared, took her into his arms, and whispered, "You are mine, no one can get close to you." Zhang Ying's chest rose and fell violently, and she couldn't resist or dare not refuse. In the dark night, the figures of the two were intertwined, and her world was completely occupied by him from then on. Chapter 41, Encounters in the Night Rain. At night, rain hits the windows, and the neon lights on the streets are blurred. Zhang Ying hurried home, her umbrella swaying in the wind. "Be careful." The male classmate appeared and reached out to support her. Zhang Ying's heart was shocked, feeling the familiar warmth, but at the same time she thought of Gu Mo's cold eyes. Her heart swelled like a tide, both expectant and afraid. When he got home, Gu Mo was already waiting at the door. He looked at her and whispered, "Where have you been?" Zhang Ying couldn't hide it, she could only lower her head, setting off a storm in her heart. She knew that she was standing at the junction of two emotions. Chapter 42, Oppression in the Undercurrent. Late at night, Zhang Ying was sitting at her desk, the lights were dim. Gu Mo stood at the door, his eyes cold, and his tone was low, "You are mine, no one can get close to you." Zhang Ying felt that her chest was overwhelmed, and her heart was both scared and excited. She looked up at his profile and couldn't deny the throbbing in her heart. "What are you thinking?" Gu Mo asked. "It's nothing," she replied in a low voice, but her mind was already entangled in the emotions of last night. In the dark night, his possessiveness surged like an undercurrent, completely filling her world. Chapter 43, Sudden Secrets. In the afternoon, Zhang Ying received an anonymous letter that revealed some secrets and whereabouts of Gu Mo's past. Her heart was shocked and she couldn't understand the origin of the letter. In the evening, Gu Mo came home, saw the letter, his face was cold, and he said in a low voice, "Do you know my secret?" Zhang Ying's heart tightened, but she couldn't deny her dependence on him. She began to understand that every step of this marriage was not just a superficial form, but a deep emotional war. Chapter 44, The Temptation of a Rainy Night. Late at night, the sound of rain crashed against the windows. Zhang Ying couldn't sleep. Gu Mo walked into the room silently, took her into his arms, and whispered, "You only belong to me." She felt her heart beat like thunder, and a chill ran down her spine, but she couldn't resist. Fingers wrapped around his wrists, lips and tongues intertwined, and in the dark night, his possessiveness surged like a torrent. That night, for the first time, she felt her dependence on him so clearly, and for the first time she understood that his love was deep and inescapable. Chapter 45, Confusion in the Morning Light. In the early morning, the sun shone into the room through the curtains, and Zhang Ying felt as if her chest was being quietly tightened. The lingering of last night still echoed in her mind, and her heart could not calm down. Gu Mo had already gone out, leaving only the silence and the aroma of coffee in the room. Zhang Ying lowered her head and sipped her coffee, her fingers trembling slightly. She understood that her feelings for him were fermenting, and this relationship was full of contradictions and dangers. Chapter 46, The Appearance of a Strange Woman. In the afternoon, a strange woman appeared and handed Zhang Ying a piece of information, her tone polite but nervous. "This is for you, please be careful." Zhang Ying opened the information, and there were Gu Mo's past secrets and whereabouts. She was shocked and couldn't understand it. Later, Gu Mo came home, saw the information, his face was cold, and he whispered, "You now understand how deep my possessiveness is." Zhang Ying's chest was so stuffy that she couldn't breathe, but the throbbing in her heart couldn't be ignored, and she understood that she was completely occupied. Chapter 47, Entanglement in the Dark Night. It was late at night and the lights in the room were dim. Gu Mo took Zhang Ying into his arms and whispered, "You are mine, no one can get close to you." Zhang Ying's chest rose and fell violently, and her back felt a slight chill, but she couldn't resist. His fingers wrapped around her wrists, his lips and tongue intertwined, and in the dark night, his possessiveness surged like an undercurrent, completely filling her world. Chapter 48, The Undercurrent in My Heart. Late at night, Zhang Ying was lying on the bed, her heart surging like an undercurrent. She couldn't ignore the oppression brought about by Gu Mo's possessiveness, nor could she deny the throbbing in her heart. Gu Mo approached and whispered, "You are mine, only I can have you." Zhang Ying's chest rose and fell violently, and she couldn't resist or dare not refuse. In the dark night, the figures of the two were intertwined, and her world was completely occupied by him from then on. Chapter 49, The Final Challenge. One night, Gu Mo looked at Zhang Ying coldly and said in a low voice, "You must choose, who does your heart belong to?" Zhang Ying felt a tightness in her heart, and tears rolled in her eyes. She finally understood that this marriage was not just a formality, but an emotional abyss, and her only choice was to face her heart. In the dark night, his hands wrapped around her wrists, his eyes hot and possessive. Zhang Ying felt the throbbing in her heart, she couldn't escape, and she didn't want to escape. Chapter 50, The Final Chapter of the Night. Agarwood. It was late at night and there was only faint light in the room. Zhang Ying leaned into Gu Mo's arms, their heartbeats intertwined, like the ebb and flow of the tide in the night. "You are mine, and you will always be mine," Gu Mo whispered, his voice low and domineering. Zhang Ying closed her eyes, and an unprecedented throbbing surged in her heart. She understands that no matter how the outside world changes, his love and possessiveness have been deeply integrated into her life. The night was fragrant, and the sound of rain outside the window echoed like a whisper, and at this moment, only each other was left in their world. The story ends here, but the undercurrent of love and possession will forever remain in Zhang Ying's heart, deep and indelible.